Got that?
Budget changes prior to adoption. Words mean things.
So we had, to balance our budget, one of the actions we took was to reduce personnel count by 6 positions. We've got to 5, and we still need to get how much more money?
107.
About $100,000.
It was 107. It's about 176 now,
So,
because there's been some changes since then. We got all the non-union increases in there, and
Was that 176,000? Okay. Am I
well, we
hearing-
were at 107. We got
Yep.
the CADS increase in there, and then there was. I'm just going through my whole list. There was a small adjustment with, I believe it was the warehouser, where a vehicle was not budgeted in the expense, and that was offset a little bit by Department of State Lands covering more, half of a deputy. Am I saying this right?
So TOPS was halfway funded out of the general fund. Department of State Lands is going to be picking up the rest of that position.
Oh.
So it's out of the general fund now.
So that helped it by about
Thank you.
72,000, I think.
Significant.
Nice.
But it was offset by a vehicle that wasn't put
Yeah.
in expenses, so it was pretty much a wash. There was a little bit of a cost to that. We adjusted the dispatch contract, and we had to add in 10% of the road office assistant in the surveyor's office. So just a lot of little things. There's another adjustment for something that is for a retirement and a position going from 65% to 100% in July for HR, and that's on the agenda for the board meeting next week. I think that's pretty much it. There, I recalculated property taxes to cover a little bit of it. Since the last time we met. And there was a few small revenue changes, like to the tune of $5,000 here or there. So those were the main changes.
So the new number is,
176,000, but I mean, we don't have to get right on. I am comfortable with balancing out of the operating contingency, not the full 176, obviously, but up to, $20,000 or $30,000. I'm comfortable lowering our operating contingency.
So if we
for
got
next
down
year.
in the 150,000 range,
I'll cover
I
the
think
rest
we're-
with the operating
we're okay.
contingency.
that would be about one person.
well, it would be one patrol deputy. If you look at a different position, then you could, you would be looking at less expense, potentially. Depends.
So what have you identified anything?
I only came up with the 42,000 of assistant from the sheriff's office.
And you and the sheriff have been working? You come up with anything?
No, we weren't meeting for that. We were discussing what ifs, just to ease my calculations here when you guys make a decision.
So,
Nothing on my possibility that I was working on. Still may come, but It hasn't come yet.
Okay, so we can't count on that?
We can't count on that yet.
So, and we're about done with yet. Today, we got to figure it out.
Yep.
So what are we going to do?
Well, part of this could potentially be worked out with some attrition and internal transfer within the county, not necessarily within a department, but I know that, you have some personnel near the exit and, potential to maybe reduce where the budget doesn't cover and provide where it already does cover.
I need something a little more concrete than that.
Yeah, well, we
I
can't
mean, that was
get-
our goal today, you guys. I've made,
I haven't come up with any other department to cut anybody from. I think we already made the
I'm gonna
pitch for
put it,
retirements.
monkey in your guys' back.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
suggested 6 cuts.
Yep.
We reduced that to 5. So let's come up with something.
Yep.
I'm waiting.
Only spot I'm seeing left is a deputy. I can't find another.
Well, and I would add that if additional cuts need to come out of the sheriff's department, I don't know if that's our place to specify a deputy, that's the sheriff's call.
Yeah, one
So-
position, I should say. Sheriff, what would that do to, where do you think it would come from?
Patrol. It would have to, in order to make the
We're on mine. Yeah, come up here.
You can go T-Shawn if you want. This affects you. The only possible place they could make up that amount that we could, actually I had a conversation with Sean before this started about patrol hours, but it would have to be a patrol deputy.
What would it do to hours?
I don't know. We're trying to figure out how
Yeah.
to creatively work it so we don't have to reduce. Worst case scenario is probably from 8 to midnight to 08, no patrol services.
Yeah.
Well, that's worst case scenario. That's, obviously really trying not to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some issues moving forward into this fiscal year as it pertains to attrition.
Yep.
Where we're going to need to start hiring. And because we're going to have called everybody back. We're aware of 4
Yes.
people that are potentially applying outside of the county and going elsewhere. So we're,
4 people that are currently working are applying for jobs.
yeah, or have accepted positions
Uh-huh.
that don't start till later.
One has.
Yeah, one has.
So we would just not refill a position if one was cut right now?
Well, I have an open position that we've been leaving open until July.
Oh, okay.
So we would just not,
Not fill that.
well, I'd have to take away from patrol because I'm leaving the top's position open until July. We would have to take from patrol, fill that position because it's funded,
Yeah.
and leave patrol short.
We got 4 that are applying for jobs outside and we're gonna leave anyway. Sounds like we would land in a pretty similar situation to where we're at. If something comes through between now and yonder, we could reopen a position.
I don't think that we can. 3 of those positions are in the jail. If we lose 1 deputy out of the jail,
Yeah.
we're hurting for certain, which means that
Gotcha.
we're gonna have to create a hiring list. Now, the problem with it is under our current fiscal circumstance, we have to tell people, you may not have a job in 6 months. We might be able to send you to the academy.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a tough pill to swallow. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know that I would take a job under those circumstances.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't.
Reality.
The other option is really cause some aggravation if we took more out of the reconciliation fund.
It just puts it back down, kicks the
Yeah, I got you.
can down the road, and we've already done that,
Yep.
doing over 600,000.
Are you guys gonna allow people to ask questions?
What?
Are you guys gonna allow people to ask questions?
Well, yes, yes.
Yeah.
But you'll have to come forward so we can hear you.
I know it makes it painful later on.
Closer to the mic.
Sorry, I know it makes it painful later on, but like what we had to do in November, where
It's
we
not
did
on.
it at that point. You know, we have some grants we're applying for right now that we have gotten them the last 4 times, and the state has already approved the funds, so they're pretty certain.
Okay.
That will add like another, at least $70,000 towards personnel that we'll be able to cover.
Okay.
There are some things in the works that, is there a reason why, if those don't happen, then cut it at that point? That we can't include that stuff in.
What, do you know when that point is, Dee Dee?
So the first round that we have to apply for, to put in the application is in June. And then the final application will be in August, and we can have the funds in October.
This is 70K that you've received 4 years in a row?
We received more than that, but we're asking for an increase in the amount that it covers in personnel, and also adding in another department for it to cover part of one of their employees
Yeah.
that's a general fund person.
4 years in a row is consistent to me. Megan, thoughts?
So this is the marijuana grant that Scent gets. How much of that $70,000 is actually going to cover personnel?
That is increasing totally in general fund personnel is what I'm talking about. We're going to increase the amount that SENT covers so that
To
general
what?
fund doesn't
So
have to.
is that 70,000 the personnel amount
Yes.
for
Yes.
general fund?
The
It's-
grant will be more than that. That's
The
70
grant, okay.
More we can put
Yeah.
towards.
So if we,
The only difference is that we've never covered that much of personnel out of this specific grant. So we just don't know if that would affect our grant, our chances of getting that grant. And I'm not saying it will affect it either way, it's just that we have never covered that
We
much
have,
of.
we just haven't had it at the percentages. Last time, the last one I did, we asked for it to cover 280-some thousand worth of personnel. But a lot of that was overtime, it wasn't their straight pay. This time, we're going to ask for more for their operating straight pay that the general fund covers, and less for the overtime. So this won't be a big ask for them, because we don't have a lot of equipment and other things we're asking for.
you're confident it won't impact future requests?
No, we ask for a whole lot less than most of the counties, just because we don't have as big of a team.
Yeah.
There's counties, our total amount that we might get from them for 2 years might be 500,000. Jackson County is getting like 4 million. Wow. So see, it's like a huge discrepancy in that, because they've got a giant team.
So we've got your 70. If we do the thing I proposed, we got another 42. That puts us at 112.
And out of curiosity, I know that the retro 3% was being covered by something else. It's not part of this 176. But by it being a retro 3%, that causes compound interest. It's not a 5% that ends up happening. It ends up, there's like another 16,000. Can't that be covered by whatever covered the 6 months of the 3%? Because it really made it more than a 5% increase.
I didn't track that. I'm sorry. Megan?
It's compound interest.
Yeah.
You $300,
Yep.
I give you $100 at 3%, and then in 6 months, I now charge you another 2%
I
on
got
top
that.
of
I
it.
apologize. I missed where the interest was coming from. What
Yeah.
fund are you talking about interest from?
I'm talking about the raises. The raises ended up being a bigger
Okay.
liability than
Yep.
just 5% because they end
I
up
gotcha.
compounded.
What-
Then it's about another $16,000.
What are you proposing covers that 16,000?
Whatever covered the 74 or 72 of adding the 6 months liability that hadn't been there when the budget committee chose the 5%
We
in
already spent
July.
that. I'm not for that.
Because it was a liability they didn't do. And now we're having to try to find a reduction for something that wasn't a liability.
So
When-
there was 5% for non-union already in the budget. And we changed that from 5% as of July 1st to 3% starting in January, and then another 2% July 1st. So the difference between those two numbers, by doing the 5% in total in July 1st and the 3 in January and 2 in July, was very minimal. I mean, most departments, I think mine is one of the higher ones, and it changed by $273. So the differences were not significant by doing the 3% and then the 2%. The change was very minimal
So going from.
in next year's budget.
Yep, going from 76, we got 112 cut out, that leaves us at 64K, is that what we're looking at? You were comfortable with a 20 to 30 flexibility?
Yes. So you're talking about taking the federal forest receipts from the road department.
Okay,
Is that what you're discussing?
I believe so, the thing we talked about last time, I think that's what yeah, lots of pieces. Yep, that was it.
And the other thing is the MOU that CADS did for the 1% was based on the information that it would not cause a cut. So are there those of us that can give it back then? Because I'm not willing to take 1% and lose people.
So that deficit was already there before,
But it wasn't the 176, it was the 107, right?
which is still a person.
Right, but if we subtracted everything from the 107, we've got it already with the 70, the 42. I mean, we're there on that one. We're not there on the 176.
But the 107 was an estimate that's no longer pertinent.
Right,
Because
that's
of
what
the
I'm saying. So
change.
can
So
we
now
give
it's
back that
170.
and bring it back down? Because we were told it would not cause a reduction, that it had been researched.
That was never said. Oh, and also, I would concur with Megan that, I don't think that makes a significant difference. I think we're talking about, and you're making up the difference between the 107 and 170 based on a possible grant funding, general fund patrol. I don't think it's prudent to be making decisions based off something that might happen, right? So I see we're still kind of at a significant deficit.
And so, and this 40, I'm still not sure where that's coming from.
The 42 Forest Reserve Fund, nope,
No, okay.
receipts.
Federal forest receipts. 75% to schools, 25% to roads. There is an ORS
Right.
368.706 that says certain counties can use this money for patrolling within the county by the county's law enforcement officials. And Coos County is number one on the list. Curry County, Douglas County, Josephine, Klamath, Lane, Lynn.
That's from Forest Service funds.
Yes, but that's not our large portion of timber funds that we get. We get more from ONC, obviously.
Right.
But in our county, federal forest receipts are pause. This fiscal year, we got $42,110. And that went into the road department.
But by law, we can use that for patrol.
Yes.
I think that's a good decision to do that.
Clarifying, when you said you're uncomfortable, was that with the 70,000? Or the other portion?
I didn't know exactly
Okay.
which forest fund it was coming from.
Oh, I got you. Cool. Okay. We're at 64 if I tracked.
And, okay, how'd you get to, so we subtracted 40, we subtracted the 42 from the 176. And
Okay.
that gets us 134.
The 70 that she referenced that we've consistently received over the last 4
Okay,
years.
I'm not
That's
real
stable
excited
enough
about,
to me.
I'm not real confident, real happy about taking anything that's not for sure.
Yeah. Well, there,
We've done that time and time again, and it just hasn't worked very well for us.
yeah. I think looking at the consistency, that's why I'm,
And I would probably tend toward Commissioner Farmer's line of thinking on that particular question.
Okay, then we have lost that vote, so now we still have how much?
64.
Plug.
Yep.
Where are you gonna get that?
Always welcoming more thoughts from the audience.
I don't know.
We upped our overtime due to recent operational tempo, and just needs for callouts, basically, really, is what we've had. We're talking about, we might be able to reduce it by 20,000, but we're gonna have to put pretty severe restrictions on what we respond to. You know, that's usually callouts are for major crashes, major crimes. Search and rescue has their own line item. Just stuff like that.
Yeah, even search and rescues cost us
Yeah.
exorbitant amounts of money in overtime just because we got to have somebody to run the volunteers.
The last murder was quite a bit of money. So, I mean, we could reduce that. We run the risk of not being able to respond to these major incidents.
I was
as
talking to
well.
Roger the other day about Craddock, about the 2007 timeframe. He mentioned when he had talked to Andy at the time, with mutual aid, obviously they can't respond to the calls outside of the zone.
Right.
But he did discuss being able to hold the call until an officer can respond.
Yeah.
Would that assist any in this circumstance?
That's what we do now.
Well,
So
not myself.
we can reduce it, and we'll try to work within the parameters of without that money. So we can take 20 from there.
Sheriff, what about some cuts in the support area rather than patrol? If we're looking for a smaller number.
Yeah, if we're down to 64. We have looked at, well, everything, really. There's one area we might, but that'll impact, really the only support area we have on the patrol side. We can't do anything on the jail. They're pretty much taxed out. The support areas we have on the patrol side are civil, which is mandated. We can't do much there, and records and evidence. The problem with looking at records and evidence is all this work we're doing with the evidence, try to get the sobering center in, and 3057, 3056, and 114 go in. We're going to be way behind the power curve for concealed handgun licenses anyway. So I'm hesitant to look there. Not real fond of it, but of course it's an option.
If we were to cut, we might have to look at shutting down the office another day a week, only be open to the public for 3 days a week, just so the people that we do have can stay caught up.
That doesn't sound so bad to reduce office hours. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
I'd rather see that than reducing ability to supply a patrol officer.
Agreed.
When needed.
So, and as it sits now, we've had to transfer more into overtime based on previous cuts, and so to cut
Right.
overtime even more, what happens when they go over? Where is that money going to come from?
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
that would just, if we do that, I would strongly suggest that number is watched prior to giving anybody any overtime, because once it's done, and we have to cover it.
It's 64.
I think we're down the road of support staff now. You run down the consequence on one cut there?
We'd have to shut down the office another day a week.
If we want to keep going with plans we got.
Yeah.
So that would mean
No,
fingerprints, licenses have to, and like, have to come back.
Yeah, I mean, we're mandated by law to provide for CHL services. We're
What are CHL services?
concealed handgun license.
concealed handgun licenses. How far out are we, Dee Dee, on that right now on the calendar?
About a week and a half. We're still doing very good as compared to many counties. There's some that are 3 months out. But it's gotten worse because here lately, everybody's afraid about that new firearm purchase. So they're all coming. But we have to take civil papers every single day,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, even if we're closed, because we have to do it when the court's open.
That means that one of the people at the front desk does that,
Yes.
even if you're closed.
Yeah, they can call. We'll go open the door for them.
Well, so that remains inflexible, but the other public counter services are flexible. And I have personally no trouble at all with the idea of going down to 3 days. I think that's.
It does affect revenue though, because we make money on CHLs, and so you're gonna reduce what we can bring in.
People are still coming.
At $125 a pop.
Well, so, but if I want a CHL, I gotta get it from our sheriff in our county. I can't go to Jackson and get a CHL. And if I want a CHL, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to come after it. I don't think it's gonna cost us revenue. I think it's gonna stretch out the revenue a little bit,
Yes.
but it's not gonna terminate that revenue. People are still gonna do it.
They'll come back, we just can't handle as many to bring in the revenues fast. is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And right now, we are helping out Curry County employees, we're doing their CHLs because they're not open to do it. But that won't be a forever revenue, because eventually, hopefully, they'll open back up.
I can give a CHL to anybody. Doesn't have to be in county. We just do it that way because for records checks.
Okay?
He has the authority to issue for anybody. in Oregon.
Okay.
I like this idea. I'm not proud of making this statement, but we've worked really, really hard to minimize our impact on the public. And and doing so in a way, it kind of creates an injustice because we continue to do all we can to provide all the services we've always provided. And we're kind of the end of that road. And this is the most benign way I can think of that we can signal our citizens that we can't provide all the services with the revenues we have available.
I think,
And this is a much better way of sending that signal, balancing our budget and cutting or reducing overtime to the point we can't respond.
I don't know that I agree, simply because we've been trying to dig ourselves out of this evidence mess. We have 40 years worth of evidence that we are making very, very slow progress on because we have one person working on it. If we reduce one of those, we'll have 0 people dedicated to it. I mean, I don't want to lose a patrol deputy either, so, I mean, I get that somewhere has to give, I understand that.
Sheriff, there's some future revenue potential out of that evidence?
Yes.
Is it possible that somebody could be hired or somebody could be retained to handle that burden on a percentage basis?
Part-time basis, yeah.
No, a percentage basis, like a commission. Like you get all this evidence, marketed out, sold, and, you get
Get a commission.
10%.
I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure.
But that's not recurrent.
Well, no, so I think what Commissioner's talking about is getting rid of one of the positions that I'm concerned about, and then having somebody come in extra too, with the intent of getting rid of evidence and taking commission of.
Like a
auction
contractor.
basis.
So I could see it, they would have to be a full contractor, and by definition, Otherwise, they could make too much money and become eligible for PERS and everything like that. There's a lot of laws surrounding that. So, I mean, maybe a temporary position to hire through Cardinal, something like that, or someone that does this for a living and has a business and we have a contract with them.
That may be a
But
deal
we
for
can't-
another day.
Yeah.
I have a lot of concerns, mainly surrounding the laws and the handling of evidence and how careful we have to be in the handling of evidence. It's not something we can just bring somebody off the street off to do.
That's okay.
One of the largest areas of liability for the sheriff is the evidence room.
Oh, yeah. Jail and evidence. I don't
Probably
know.
shouldn't say that in a public meeting, but it's true.
I think I've got a motion ready to go, if folks
try
are
it on
ready. So, I move to balance the budget by taking $42,000 from the federal forest receipts for patrol, $70,000 based on the grant that's been considered.
Federal forest
Receipts.
Receipts.
on
the roads
Okay,
Yep.
and that
From the
goes,
roads
and that
department.
goes into the sheriff's department.
To the sheriff's department. Acknowledging the $70,000 out of a grant that's been received consistently for 4 years in a row. And the removal of one position from the sheriff's office to be determined by the sheriff. Because we can't dictate who it is, of
I'm sorry.
course.
112, so we're looking at 64,000 remaining?
Yes. Yep.
Potential, Dee Dee just brought up, it's a good idea, potential maybe of moving one of those positions to a half-time position.
I'm sorry,
Potential maybe moving one of those positions to a half-time position. I don't know that it would make up enough,
I'll say then,
make up the difference.
enough of a position to result in a $64,000 savings. And Caroline's got a hand.
Thank you.
Caroline.
Is there a motion on the table?
That's what
That
I'm
was the
working on.
motion. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
I got a motion then.
Sorry.
It was, the 42,000 federal forest receipts, 70,000 cent grant, and the removal of a position at the discretion of the sheriff, not less than $64,000 in value.
I'll second, at least for discussion.
I don't think that you can direct him as far as a position. You can just do 64,000.
Okay, save
Dollars out of his
$64,000,
budget, yeah.
please.
Will do.
And Caroline.
Caroline,
Unfortunately for me, I do.
I can't hear you very well.
I listen to too much metal. And Gabe does too.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I do have a pending retirement in my office. And so I will be losing a key staff member. Upon interviewing a potential person coming from the sheriff's office, I could be persuaded to, like I said, I'd want to interview that person first, but I could be persuaded to maybe take that support staff position and over in the HR department.
Cool.
As a possibility. But like I said, I'd want to interview first to make
Of
sure it
course.
was the right person.
All right. So we might make a bureaucratic cut and still save a person.
But that would leave them down a person.
Yes, it will still be, yes, I got you.
Good for Caroline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good for the person that keeps a job.
And is there, I mean, this is 64 without any kind of, you're talking about operating contingency covering a little bit of it? Should we add that to it, or?
I could, yes. I said, what did I say?
You said 20 or 30,
Yeah.
so we'll say 30.
Okay.
And
I amend my motion
Full
to,
disclosure, operating contingency does get us through the following year before property taxes comes out, so it will
Right.
affect the beginning balance for the following year.
I amend my motion to include the 20 or 30,000, which,
30
30,000?
is,
from the operating contingency, reducing the value to 34,000.
Second the amendment. Motion?
Bobby, you got all this? I got you. Thank God.
Okay, read it to me. Okay, so where are we finding the money again, once more, for my benefit?
So, roughly 42,000 from federal forest receipts, 70,000 from the marijuana grant, and 30,000 from operating contingency, leaving the deficit at $34,000. And I believe that was what was directed to reduce the sheriff's department budget by.
I will find it.
And
You can
it-
find that?
Gonna have to.
And it should be noted that this obviously comes at a $42,000 cost to the roads department.
Yeah.
They had actually budgeted 50,
Oh,
but I'm not comfortable putting 50 in the general fund.
All right.
cool.
So, yeah,
Okay,
So it
well,
will-
appreciation expressed to the roads department for that.
not that they had a choice.
And everyone for their input. That helped
Yeah.
us get a lot lower here.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion approved.
Okay.
That was a lot better than it could have been.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
I go with Caroline today, if you have time.
I'm right here. I'm right here. Yes,
If you have time, I'll get with you after.
yes.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything more to add? In that case, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
You gotta coat them in chocolate for Megan.
Why is Megan working 24 hours a day?
I remember, you remember the cozy that used to be on the main drag in Coos Bay? It was Little Richards before that.